god demons and others. And we'll be reading about Nal today. Right? Nal. Nal was the new ruler of Nishat, a kingdom of utmost prosperity and beauty, where the citizens lived a life of peace and contentment. So as I'm reading it to my mother and I'm also putting it on YouTube.
आप बोलिए धीरे धीरे बोलो, हिंदी में ही पढ़ लो.
ठीक है मम्मा. मतलब नल का जो था निशात किंगडम का था, तो वहाँ पे रूलर्स जो थे एकदम सिटीजन्स जो थे बड़े पीसफुल और कंटेंटली रहते थे. Reflecting the qualities of the ruler who was young, brave and good. He was a bachelor. वो एक bachelor था. Why such an accomplished personality should have remained a mystery to everyone, but the gods had other plans for him, as we shall see. He remained unthinking of a wife until an itinerant poet arrived at the court one day and recited, Tree without bark,
Eh?
tree without bark, house without walls, gold bowl without food or wine. What do they remind you of? The king, who was in his audience chamber with a select group of courtiers and scholars, answered, They remind one of a tree without a bark, that's all. At which the poet became serious and said, They are not unlike a man without a wife. A life wasted in solitude and pining. Whatever may be the glitter and shine outside, inside it's all just bare and unprotected, without content. So is a man without a wife, so is a woman without a husband. In a week I've seen two such, Your Majesty's good self and Damayanti, the daughter of Bhima, the king of Vidarbha, where I sojourned 8 days ago. You are made for each other, but yet you let cruel distance separate. The poet described Damayanti. Fashioned by the Creator in his best mood, I stammer and grow incoherent when I try to describe her eyes, lips, complexion, and figure, for I at once reject every known epithet as being inadequate. The propitious moment for which Manmata, the god of sugarcane bow, had been waiting, seemed to have arrived. The king said, Poet, go back to Vidarbha and tell her, O king, that I cannot do. When I move in a straightforward direction and never turn back. Forgive me, sire, send a messenger. So the king fell in love with the unseen Damayanti. His interest in sports, administration, and court life dwindled. He could not shut his eyes without being haunted by her image. All day long he kept wandering in his garden, idly watching the lotus poles and the fountains. It was a total and absolute love sickness, which deprived the king of taste for food, sleep, company, and solitude alike. At the lotus pond evening, he saw a family of swans gently paddling along, and he envied their poise. He shot out his arm and caught one and lifted it up. The swan struggled in his grip and said, King, let me go. I have not harmed you in any way. You are sick in mind, I am not, but that is hardly my fault. All the other swans paused in their perambulation and watched their companion. Null apologized to the swan. I didn't know what I was doing. I'll let you go. I envy you. That is all. The swan said, wing flapping, water soaked creatures like us to be object of a king's envy. You can fly, I can't, said the king. I'm earthbound. But you have fast chariots and your horsemanship is known in all the worlds. You can.
हिंदी बताओ, तुम जल्दी पढ़ते हो.
अच्छा अमा मतलब ये कि नल जो थे एक राजा थे.
नहीं, वो तो he fell in love with her.
अब हाँ मतलब एक आदमी आया बोला कि भैया एक पेड़ जिसकी शाखा नहीं है वो कैसा है, मतलब ऐसी कि भी जिंदगी इनकम्प्लीट है. तो भीम राजा हैं, उनकी एक लड़की है दमयंती, वो अतीव सुंदर है और आपको जो है आप दोनों एक दूसरे के लिए बने हुए हो. तो नल ने कहा ठीक है मुझे इससे शादी करनी है ना. अब उनका जो था दिमाग राजकाज में लगना बंद हो गया, उनका इंटरेस्ट वगैरह तो सब ड्विंडल हो गया. ठीक है ना. और वो मतलब बस आंखें बंद करते और दमयंती के उनका चेहरा दिखाई देता. ठीक है ना. और वो जो था, अब क्या हुआ कि एक दिन वो बैठे हुए थे और उनके पॉन्ड में एक फैमिली ऑफ स्वान्स आए. स्वान्स मतलब वो आए और उन्होंने क्या किया, नल ने एक स्वान को पकड़ लिया। स्वान ने कहा मुझे छोड़ो, आपने मुझे क्यों पकड़ा, ठीक है ना। तो नल ने कहा कि मुझे माफ़ करना, मैंने बस, मुझे तो आपसे ईर्ष्या हो रही थी, आप कैसे जा रहे थे, मैंने तुम्हें बस इसलिए पकड़ लिया। वह कितने होता है। द स्वान सेड विंग फ्लैपिंग वाटर सो क्रीचर्स लाइक अस टू बी ऑब्जेक्ट्स ऑफ अ किंग्स एनवी। अरे हम जैसे जानवर जो कि पानी में रहते हैं, विंग फ्लैपिंग राजा की एनवी। यू कैन फ्लाई आई कांट से द किंग, आई एम अर्थ बाउंड। मैं धरती से बंधा हूँ, मैं तो फ्लाई नहीं कर सकता, तुम लोग उड़ सकते हो। But your fast chariots and your horsemanship is known in all the world. You can make a horse fly by a mere touch. But I'm still not able to go where I most wish to go. O Swan, go to Vidarbha, fly over and beyond those high walls where the princess dwells. Descend into her garden and tell her that I'm desperate and dying. तो राजा ने क्या किया, एक पंछी को भेजा उड़ के कहने के लिए कि देखो दमयंती को बोलो कि मैं उसका इंतज़ार कर रहा हूँ। कितना सुंदर तरीके से किया। All the swans in the flock clouded around eagerly. They cried with one voice, O king, we'll all fly off together and help you. We will plead your cause. हम लोग सब जाएंगे और आपका जो है काम वो करेंगे. You can fly over moats and battlements and lend me your wings for a day, said the king. He stroked the back of a swan and let it go. राजा भी कितना अच्छा था, उसने उसको स्वान को जाने दिया. The swan said, King, I'll never forget your kindness. We lay our lives at your feet. The swan got back into the water and made preparations for travel. Whatever preparation a swan would normally make before a long flight. Perhaps picked the backs of the fledglings to say goodbye and asked an aged relative to keep an eye on the young ones and accompany the swans flew. तो swans जो थे उड़ के वो निकले. The king looked suddenly cheerful. अब राजा जो थे suddenly cheerful हो गए. But he had a tendency to stay near the lily pond. His ministers, who were now emboldened to pace around with him, noticed the pond and asked, just to make conversation, where are all the swans one used to see here? अरे सारे पंछी जो हमारे pond में थे वो कहाँ चले गए? Nal ignored the question as if to indicate that he had more important subjects on his mind than swans. नल ने कहा अरे यार इसका तो मैं जवाब नहीं देने वाला, मैंने ही तो भेजा था, उसने ही तो भेजा था. He had a suspicion, the usual one that besets love-lorn men and women, that all his plans were secret and likely to be spoiled by others. अब क्या हुआ कि the brood of swans arrived back in due course at dusk one day. एक दिन dusk पे वो लोग पहुंचे. The chief swan said, our mission has been successful and explained how they had met Damayanti. Given her the message, bore her reply that she had been pinning for him ever since she had heard his name mentioned. जब से दमयंती ने भी नल का नाम सुना था वो भी एकदम वो थी कि भैया ठीक है कि मुझे उनसे बात करनी है. And that Nal should have his chariot ready to come flying to Vidarbha the moment a Swamvar was announced. जैसे ही स्वयंवर अनाउंस हो, नल को उड़ करके जो था दमयंती के पास जाना है. Damayanti began her preparations. No girl could ever go to her father straight away and declare that she was anxious for a Swamvar. It was not done in such an elementary and blunt manner. अब कोई भी औरत ये नहीं कह सकती मुझे स्वयंवर कराओ. तो दमयंती ने तैयारी शुरू की स्वयंवर की. The idea had to be conveyed in signs and in code. Damayanti's maids often went to the queen and bewailed that the princess was losing weight, her bangles were slipping off her wrists, her eyes were becoming dark red, and she seemed to have a burden on her mind. ऐसा लग रहा है कि रानी साहिबा पे बच्ची पे एक बोझ है, उनकी चूड़ियां टूट रही हैं, उनका वेट कम हो रहा है. क्या बात है.
किसने कहा, किसके?
भीम से कहा ना, उसके पिता से, दमयंती के पिता से कहा. A busy father like Bhim hardly ever noticed until he was told, but now he took the hint and sent out heralds far and wide to announce that as the princess would soon be selecting her husband, all eligible bachelors and others too were welcome to come to Vidarbha and try luck. तो उनको लगा कि भैया अब तो शादी करनी पड़ेगी, तो उन्होंने उनका स्वयंवर कराया. उन्होंने कहा कि भैया देखो तुम लोग आ जाओ. Soon the traffic on the road to Vidarbha noticeably increased. as the suitors converged in the capital on horseback, in chariots, and by the elephant. Nal was one of the earliest to start, although he could have been the last, considering his acquaintanceship as well as his chances. While on the road, he was joined by four others. तो नल जो था उसके साथ जो थे चार लोग और भी जो थे वो आ रहे थे. They were all gods in human form. Indra, the chief of all the minor gods. Indra भगवान है. Varun, the god of rain, air, and ocean. Agni, the god of fire, and Yam, the lord of death. तो उनके साथ चार भगवान भी है नल के साथ. The sage Narad, that supreme intellectual who moved with ease amongst the worlds, conveying the news from one world to another, and relishing the twists and interplay of human and divine situations, had taken the trouble to visit Indra in his world and inform him and other gods of Damayanta's Swayamvar. तो नारद भगवान भी है. उनको बड़ा इंटरेस्ट रहता था कि भैया क्या हो रहा है किसमें हो रहा है, तो वो भी है. He gave an edge to the news by adding that the god's chances were nil, as Nal was already predestined to be the bridegroom. तो नारद भगवान ने आके बिगाड़ा, बोला भैया नल की तो पक्की शादी होगी, क्योंकि उसकी शादी की गॉड्स के कोई ज़्यादा चांसेस नहीं है. एंड दैट द होल ऑफ स्वयंवर वाज जस्ट अ फॉर्मेलिटी. स्वयंवर तो बस कहने की बात है. नल की ही शादी दमयंती से होगी, तुम जैसे भी मान लो. They stirred the gods to undertake a trip to the earth. इससे क्या हुआ
भैया का दे दो और साहब को पूछ लेना साहब
कि लोगों ने कहा कि अब हमें धरती जाना होगा. भगवान ने कहा. They came down precisely when Nal was resting his horse and revealed their identities and asked, "Will you help us?" तो नल के पास गए, तो जहाँ पे नल अपना घोड़ा वो करके रखा था, तो भगवान आए और भगवान बोले कि भैया क्या तुम नल हमारी मदद करोगे. इन वॉट वे, किस तरीके से. How can you ask what will it be worth if the help is circumscribed and limited? Will you help us or not? आप हमारी मदद करोगे कि नहीं करोगे. Yes, I promise you my help, said the mild king, intimidated by their manner. Yes, do you promise? Yes, I do, he said unthinkingly. At once the god Indra said, You must go ahead of us and persuade Damayanti to choose one of us as a husband. अरे तुम ऐसा करो, तुम आगे जाओ और दमयंती से कहो कि हम लोगों में से किसी एक को शादी के लिए राजी कर लें. नल रिप्लाइड, हाउ कैन आई एम माई सेल्फ गोइंग देयर होपिंग टू बी चोजन. तो नल ने कहा, अरे मैं कैसे कर सकता हूँ, मैं खुद ही जा रहा हूँ चूज होने के लिए. यू प्रॉमिस अस योर हेल्प, आर यू बैकिंग आउट नाउ एट इट नाउ. कनिंग था, मतलब गॉड्स भी कनिंग था. उन्होंने बोला, अरे तुमने हमसे कहा था कि तुम हमारी मदद करोगे, अब तुम क्या बैक आउट कर रहे हो. ओ गॉड्स फॉरगिव मी, टेक पिटी ऑन मी, हाउ कैन आई डू समथिंग अगेंस्ट माई ओन इंटरेस्ट. हे भगवान, मैं अपने इंटरेस्ट के खिलाफ कैसे जा सकता हूँ, मुझ पर दया करो. आई हैव वेटेड फॉर दिस चांस ऑल माई लाइफ. मैं पूरी जिंदगी इस दमयंती से शादी करने के लिए स्वयं में जाने के लिए. Why did you say you would do anything? Break your word if you dare, said the gods grimly, hinting at eternal consequences. भगवान ने कहा, अरे देखो अगर तुमने ये वायदा पूरा नहीं किया तो तुम पे लानत आ जाएगी. नल पे बोले कि भाई तुम पे लानत आ जाएगी. Null tried a little diplomacy now. Most of the approaches to the palaces would be blocked except the one leading straight to the pavilion where the swimwear is to be held. I know that the most rigorous steps have been taken to keep out intruders. तो सारे एंट्रेंसेस टू द पैलेस में ब्लॉक हैं, बस एक ही जगह है जहाँ पे कि स्वयंवर जो है होने वाला है वो शायद खुला होगा. द गॉड स्माइल एज इफ एवरीवन इज गोइंग टू बी एन इंट्रूडर एक्सेप्ट यू. है ना. And rose to the occasion by promising, We will help you get past all the barricades, barriers, and battlements. We will help you to get within the whispering distance of Damayanti, provided you plead her cause. हम तुम्हें दमयंती के पास ले जाएंगे अगर तुम हमारा काम कर दो, भगवान ने कहा. Nal was thrilled at the prospect of an approach to his beloved and cried enthusiastically, Yes, I'll go. By their magic powers, the gods helped him stand face to face with Damayanti in a private garden. दमयंती बैठी हुई थी और भगवान ने नल को उसके सामने खड़ा किया. They met like long lost lovers, having held each other in vision, dream, and thought for months. तो अच्छा चलो अब बंद करना पड़ेगा। क्यों इन लोग
कितना बची है?
काफ़ी बची है माँ, कल पढ़ते हैं फिर। ठीक है बच्चे आ गए। ओके कल
चलो
पढ़ते हैं।
कर लो अभी अभी अभी
Nal explained his mission. Nal ने अपना mission. Damayanti declared without hesitation, "It is impossible. Let them do their worst. I'll not even glance at anyone. You are my lord." तुम मेरे भगवान हो, मैं किसी पे ग्लांस नहीं करूंगी, जो करना है करने, मैं नल तुमसे ही शादी करूंगी। Nal went back to the god swiftly the same way by which he had come and happily exclaimed to them. तो नल भगवान गए और जिस रास्ते से आए थे उसी रास्ते से वो उनके पास गए। दमयंती विल नॉट गार्लैंड एनीवन एक्सेप्ट मी। दमयंती किसी को माला नहीं पहुंचाएगी एक्सेप्ट माई सेल्फ। फिर क्या हुआ? द गॉड्स रिमार्क, यू केप्ट योर वर्ड बट फेल्ड इन योर मिशन। यू शुड हैव बीन मोर पर्सुएसिव। यू हैव केप्ट टू द लेटर ऑफ योर प्रॉमिस एंड लिटिल एल्स। तो गॉड्स जो थे वो इंडियन बॉस की तरह थे। बोले तुमने जो था वर्ड का बात किया था, लेटर में प्रॉमिस किया था, पर तुमने अपना मिशन फेल कर दिया और कुछ नहीं। I did my best, replied Nal. At the assembly, all the princes had gathered, resplendently dressed and decorated, and measuring each other with haughty side glances. At an auspicious hour chosen by the learned astrologers, the princess entered and picked up a garland from a tray set in the middle of the hall. अब आई दमयंती और उसने एक ट्रे सेट से जो था वो एक गार्लैंड उठाया। एवरी कैंडिडेट इन दैट वास्ट हॉल स्टेड एट हर लविंगली। सब लोग उसकी तरफ देख रहे थे। Damayanti looked around searching for Nala. He sat in a back row unostraciously so that the competing gods might not blame him for spoiling their chances. Damayanti's eyes smiled, but glancing to the side, she found to her bewilderment four others, all looking at Nala. अब दमयंती हंसी। अब देखा भैया चार और लोग जो है नल की तरह ही दिखाई दे रहे हैं। भाई क्या बात है? The gods had each assumed the form, features, and dress of Nal himself. Distrusting her eyes, Damayanti came nearer, and there she saw arrayed five Nalals all in a row, like quintuplets on a display. She stared hard, but there was no way of detaching the real Nal from the rest. अब सारे नल एक से किसी को पता ही नहीं लगा. So she did the only thing she could under the circumstances, that is, pray to the very gods who were taunting her. तो जो भी भगवान उसको परेशान करे थे उनको उसकी उन्हें पूजा की. With the garland in her hand, she appealed in a silent prayer to Varun, Indra, Agni, and Yam to help her solve this conundrum. When she opened her eyes again, her prayer had been answered. The four gods looked on with unwinking eyelids. तो भगवानों की आईज जो थी वो झुकी नहीं, वो अनविंक नहीं की, मतलब ऐसे ऐसे नहीं किया, पलक नहीं झपकी उनकी,
क्या हुआ?
पलक नहीं झपकी, which is the sure mark of a god, while the human null's eyes fluttered normally. नल की आंखें झुक रही थी, ऐसे ऐसे पलक झपक रही थी, और भगवान की झपकी नहीं. That was enough. Damayanti went forward and garlanded him. The gods, having enjoyed the little diversion, were satisfied and now blessed this couple and vanished. और भगवान जो थे खुश हुए और उनको ब्लेस करके निकल गए. अब आगे पढ़ना है कि कल पढ़ना है?
वहाँ पे क्या हुआ?
फिर आगे की कहानी है. Two other gods were rather late in coming, and they were told by Indra and Agni while on their way to Bhim's country that they might as well go back. It is all over, said Indra. Don't waste your time. Indra ने कहा तुम जाओ यार. तब सब खत्म हो गया. These two gods, Kali and Dwapar, who presided over cycle of time, felt snubbed and swore. They had no business to make a farce of a Swambar. Nal has played a trick on all of us. No one is going to feel happy about it. After Nal has settled down to a happy married life with Damayanti as his queen, Kali and Dwapar entered his capital. Kali got into the mind of Pushkar, the brother of Nal, and made him challenge Nal to a game of dice. मतलब काली ने क्या किया, नल के भाई पुष्कर के दिमाग में घुस गई और पुष्कर से कहा कि देखो अपने भाई को जुए में चैलेंज करो. Nal accepted the invitation. In their private chamber, the brothers rolled the dice as a big circle of courtiers stood around and watched in silence. Kali stirred within the younger brother's bosom and made him win aggressively. और वो गए और यंगर भाई जो था वो जीतता चला गया. The other god animated the dice by entering their core. First, the little diamond on the king's finger changed hands, then the necklace on his chest, and then his chariots, horses, palace, and finally his kingdom itself.
फिर से बोलो.
मतलब नल जो थे वो ट्रांसफर जैसे युधिष्ठिर थे ना, सब कुछ हार गए जुए में, painting the usual hordes of a gambler on the next chance. पुष्कर became dynamic with evil intentions. पुष्कर का दिमाग खराब हो गया और उनकी नीयत खराब हो गई.
पुष्कर भाई था.
Brother, you have lost everything in this world. The only persuasion is left with you is your wife. Why not take her as the last chance? It may be the turning point. Nal thought for a moment. No, he said, and rose to his feet. He was stripped of his ornaments and dress, and was left with only a piece of cloth around his loins. Damayanti was shorn of all her jewelry and was permitted to leave with one sari he wore. तो नल ने दमयंती को दांव पे नहीं लगाया, एक साड़ी के साथ दमयंती जो थी नल के साथ निकल गई. Now the brother reached the acme of his evil purpose by ordering Nal and his wife out of the country. Nal और बीवी को हटा दिया रात से. He made it known through the beat of drums that anyone offering shelter to this couple would invite severe punishment. And the announcement went forth to the people under the seal and authority of the new ruler. अब क्या हुआ? The only place where Nal could stop without upsetting the order of the new ruler was an open ground on the edge of the forest. Damayanti followed her husband blindly and dumbly. Fatigued by the tramping and by the shock of the day's events, they sat down to rest. A large white bird alighted nearby. Perhaps once again it was inspired by the twin gods to torment Nala. An idea struck Nal that he ought to catch it. He had no bow or arrow with which to attack it.
चाहिए.
मतलब क्या था, एक चिड़िया आई और नल का मन हुआ कि भाई इस चिड़िया को पकड़ लें क्योंकि खाना होता ना. तो अब नल कैसे पकड़े उसको? He approached strategically, took off the single piece of cloth he had been wearing and threw it at the bird. A bird पे फैला और threw at the bird. He had calculated that under the weight of the cloth the bird would be pinned to the earth and he could just stretch out his hand for it. In his mental state it seemed a perfectly feasible plan, but the moment he threw the cloth, the bird took off with it and the king was left with no sort of cover of his body. और नल की जो थी, जो लास्ट लाइन ऑफ क्लॉथ भी जो थी वो चिड़िया उड़ा के ले गई. His wife, as ever, came to his aid. उसकी बीवी उसकी भाई एड पे आई. She unwound the end of her sari and wrapped him in it. They progressed through the forest, feeding on edible roots, and reached a hilly eminence. Nal pointed to her distant down. That's a father's capital, where you lived happily as a child. और नल ने उसको कहा कि देखो ये तुम्हारी पापा की जगह है, जहाँ पे तुम जो थे बहुत खुशी से रहती थी. It doesn't interest me, she replied firmly. I won't go back to my father. I won't leave your side. तो दमयंती ने कहा मुझे तो इंटरेस्ट नहीं है, मैं तुम्हें छोड़ूंगी. That night when Damayanti was asleep, Nal edged away, having resolved to relieve her within the sight of the father's city. तो नल ने दमयंती को रात में
रात.
छोड़ दिया कि भाई तो अपने पिता के घर जाओ. He reproached himself bitterly for deserting her, but the dangers that faced her in his company were grave. And if she was left behind, there was a chance that she might turn homeward, especially when the glow of her father's capital invited her. अब उसके फादर की कैपिटल है, उसमें दमयंती वापस चली जाएगी. नल ने कहा कि मैं आगे निकलता, मैं तो सब कुछ चला गया. He gently cut off the portion of her sari and stowed away, caring not to rustle the dry leaves under his feet. In the morning, Damayanti's only prayer to the gods was that they granted the feet of strength to tramp in search of her husband. She made her way through the forest, averting her face from the father's capital, which seemed to beckon her tantalizingly. She addressed the mountains, trees, and birds as she went along. Did you see my husband pass this way? She came upon a group of saintly men in a remote hermitage, who received her kindly and told her to stay on for the night. She fell asleep, lulled by the gentle conversation and laughter. When she woke up in the morning to find her helpers gone, she realized that she had spent the previous evening in the company of celestial beings who were perhaps guarding her. मतलब क्या हुआ कि दमयंती जो थी अपने पिता के घर नहीं गई. अब ये घूमती गई. फिर एक ऋषियों का आश्रम मिला. तो ऋषियों ने कहा तुम हमें रात में यहाँ पे रुक जाओ, आराम करो. तो दमयंती वहाँ पे जाके सो गई. और फिर जब सुबह उठी तो फिर उनको लगा कि मैं किसी, थैंक यू प्रमोद, आप इधर रख देना, कि मैं किसी सेलेस्टियल बीइंग्स के साथ थी. As she set out on the road again to resume the search for her husband, she found a caravan of traders passing and begged the leader of caravan to let her join them. They asked her where she was born and she could only say wherever you may be going. तो फिर उसको एक कारवान मिला ट्रेडर्स का और उन्होंने कहा कि भाई आप कहाँ जा रहे हो, तो वो बोली कि जहाँ तुम लोग जा रहे हो. Later, while the caravan was crossing a valley, a herd of wild elephants swooped down on it and caused panic and destruction. The survivors in the caravan turned upon Damayanti and declared, "You're an evil creature in woman's shape." अब वो एक वैली के थ्रू जा रहे थे तो हाथिया और हाथियों ने उसको कैरावान को डिस्ट्रॉय कर दिया. तो कैरावान के लोगों ने कहा तुम एक बुरी औरत हो. Noticing her ragged dress and disabled experience, they cried, "You're a witch, don't come with us, we'll kill if you follow us." तुम एक चुड़ैल हो, तो हमें फॉलो मत करो, हम तुम्हें मार डालेंगे अगर तुम फॉलो करोगे. अब कल पढ़ते हैं माँ, ठीक है.
मेहंदी किसकी लिखी हुई है?
ये आर के नारायण की है.